Hey guys, this is Scott and Josh, and welcome to LaSmudge.
And here on LaSmudge, we're gonna draw our lives.
So I was born on November 8th, 1994, in a mystical land called Panama City.
Meanwhile, a year later, I'm just a little tyke, I was born in a small town in South Dakota.
I have two brothers and one sister. My oldest sibling is 23, my sister is 22, my brother is 21.
I have no siblings, so I grew up with the life that kids with families dreamed of, but actually, I wanted a big family with like 3 brothers and maybe a sister.
I moved to Maryland when I was just a year old. I consider it to be my home because that's where I was primarily raised.
Meanwhile, I moved from small town to small town in South Dakota until I was 6. Then my dad got a job teaching overseas.
I never really had friends in Maryland. I guess I just didn't have that quality that people looked for in friends. The only friend that I really had was my best friend Katie. Katie provided support when I had all the hard times and I had no one else. So, thank you, Katie. This all changed, however, when I got tremendous news that my father got a job in a faraway land called Finland.
So when I was 6 years old, my dad headed off to some strange place that I didn't know existed called Okinawa, Japan. After my dad got settled in Okinawa, my mom and I said goodbye to all of our close family and friends, which Joshua didn't have, and boarded a plane to the land of the rising sun.
I was hesitant to leave, even though there wasn't much for me in Maryland. But although I was hesitant, I packed my things and I left. I expected to have the same experience living in Finland as I did in the States, but it was completely different.
So the plane ride to my new home was probably the worst thing ever. Not only was I leaving my family, but I also thought I was gonna die. Like, I seriously thought moving would be the end of me. So I probably puked up about half of my body weight in the airports. But at least it made arriving in Okinawa a better feeling than I'd ever thought it would be. I mean, at least I wasn't throwing up.
There I was, a little 9-year-old with a bowl cut, high-pitched voice, and still no friends. But that all changed. As my first day of school started, I started talking to this kid named Ramanuja. We just called him Rami. But this just kicked off my social career. I now had friends and people to sit at lunch with. I was a thriving hit at my school. I mean, I was one of the only 2 Americans there, so, I considered myself special.
So my first few years in Okinawa were kind of a blur. And by that I mean the whole thing was a blur. After you live somewhere for 7 years, it kind of starts to blend together. But I can say that I really did live the military type lifestyle. I'd find a best friend, then after a year or so they'd move away. Then I'd find another friend, and they'd move away too. Now, just repeat that process 7 times. It wasn't until the 7th grade that I found a really good friend that stuck with me for probably the longest time. His name was Alex, and the best thing, he liked the Broncos.
The whole Finland experience was terrific. I was able to break out of my shell and basically become a whole different person. Or, puberty happened. I became a whole new man. I mean boy. 3 years into Finland, my dad spread the news that we would soon be departing our newfound home in Finland, and that we'd be heading to the great pride lands of Italia. It seemed almost as if time just flew over my head. Although I was sad to leave, I left a more confident person than I was in Maryland. So hey to Finland and ciao to Italia.
Towards the end of my 7th grade year, my dad got news that we would be moving to Naples, Italy. At first I was excited about the upcoming adventure, but as the time to leave came near, I realized how close I had become to my home and friends in Okinawa. Leaving Okinawa was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I was a hot mess. And by that, I mean a wet one, because I was crying a lot. I didn't even get to say goodbye to my friend Alex, so, bye. I guess. And with that, I headed off to Italy. the great unknown.
When I arrived in Italy, my first stop was the Hotel Agora. This is where I would be staying for 3 months. My mother, she's very picky about the houses that she lives in. When I stayed at the Agora, I met this really weird looking kid. He had really short, unmaintained hair, ears, a nose, a freakishly round face, and an arm. I mean, he looked pretty alienish to me.
So, after spending a summer back in the States, I finally arrived in Italia. Before we found a house, we stayed in a hotel called the Hotel Agora, which had an amazing swimming pool. The only thing was it gave you a rash in an unspeakable area. Or at least an area that you don't want to talk about in front of a large group. Josh will talk later. Along with the pool, the hotel also had late night karaoke, which managed to blast through any wall known to man. So sleep was kind of an impossible task. But while I was at the Agora, I met this strange kid with a brown bowl cut and big teeth that didn't quite align, a big nose and some facial deformities, and by that I mean his face.
One day, my newfound friend and I walked up from the pool all weird-like because, we had rashes in unholy places.
Josh, I said we'd talk about that later.
Shut up! I'm telling an epic story! We decided to walk up to my hotel room, open my brother's computer, and make a video. Now, this video is never to be seen unless you want your soul to die.
Yeah, don't ever watch it. But after that day, we decided to keep making videos together. I don't know why, because this is probably the weirdest kid I've ever met.
But even with all that weirdness, that weird kid and I found out what we wanted to do for the rest of our lives, which is to become filmmakers and an actor.
So in the past year, Josh and I both decided to gain further education in the film industry through college.
I plan on studying acting for film at the New York Film Academy or American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York. I haven't quite decided yet.
And I plan on studying digital storytelling, or film, at Dakota State University in South Dakota.
So thank you for bringing a brown-haired, bowl-cut kid and a blonde-haired, round-faced boy together against all odds.
And thank you for supporting us in finding our life dreams and sending us off to pursue them.
So Scott and I want to ultimately say thank you and that we love you.
#hearts.
Why haven't we just... That was a great video.
Yeah.